right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I have a special guest in the building straight off. I want to say you straight off a nice concert experience, feeling fresh and revived and ready to go. Dr. Pamela is in the building. Dr. Pamela, how are you doing this fine Monday?
Oh, I am doing excellent, Terrell. Thank you so much for asking.
me and Dr. Pamela just talking about an amazing concert experience she had. So I'm still in awe of the
Yes,
concert that you went to, and I'm really jealous that you got to
yes.
see Janet Jackson and some of
Oh,
the
yeah.
amazing people that you just talked about.
Oh, yeah. It was a great concert. And I have to tell your listeners that it's a concert that happens every year. So I don't have to be the only one who knows about it. Every year it's the Cincinnati Music Festival. And they have some legendary artists there every year. And it was really wonderful for this event because it hadn't been done in person the last couple of years. And
Mhm.
so it was great.
Nah, yeah.
Well worth the ticket.
Yeah, so I'm definitely Rise Urban Nation. I after she told me about this concert, I'm setting my sights on Cincinnati next year or the following year, whenever they have this concert again, so that I
That's
can
right.
get me the experience like she got.
Yes, yes, it's annual, so you
All
can
right,
go.
awesome, awesome. So, Dr. Pamela, for those who have not had the privilege of getting to know you, please introduce yourself.
Mhm.
Who is Dr. Pamela? And I know that's a deep question, and I'm gonna allow you to go as far and as wide as you want to take that question to intro into who
Yeah.
you are and what you do.
Oh, sure. Um, well, I am Dr. Pamela Ellis, and my trademark is the education doctor.
Mm,
And that says a lot about who I am, what I'm passionate about as well, and to share with the audience that education is my calling.
mm,
What I do in short is I partner with parents to help their teen with finding a college that feels like home without overpaying. And all of my background and really the life I've lived in so many ways has pointed me in the direction of what I do today. And I am based out of Columbus, Ohio.
mhm.
And my business is growing. So I have offices in Chicago as well. And I'm opening up in other cities like DC, Atlanta, and
Ooh,
Houston
some of my favorite
coming up.
cities.
And so my favorite cities too. I love them all, and I love the families there that I've had the privilege to work with over the years. And so that's a little bit about who I am. I'm also, I should say, a mom of three
Oh, okay.
and very, proud of my kids. And they were really the ones who um, got me started in this work.
Uh,
So I have to thank them. I'm grateful for them for
well,
that.
you gotta tell that story now. Like, how did they get you started in this work? Because I feel like this work sometimes could be a calling, or it could be something that not everybody just born and wakes up and say, "I'm gonna do that." So, like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, really, when I became a mom, I just became obsessed with schooling and how to figure out, the best way to support my kids, especially with having Black sons. And, just afraid of just kind of how oftentimes they can be beaten down
Hmm.
in the educational system, in the K-12 system. And so that's what really drove me back to go back to Stanford to get my doctorate degree in education. And I did a lot of research around Black males in education and trying to understand and answer some questions around, how best to support their success,
Hmm.
especially through college completion, because one of the things that we saw in the research and knew to be the case was that they were dropping out in ninth grade, after 12th grade, not going on to college, and then for those who do go on to college, there's a drop off there
Mm,
as well in terms of the percentage that actually complete. And so when you look at that academic, trajectory, there are some difficult transition points,
Mm,
in each, in different phases. And so a lot of my work focus on that transition and what supports students as they go from one educational setting to the next higher educational
yeah.
setting. And so that's kind of how I say they got me into it. And I was doing research, after I finished my degree, and some parents asked me if I would help them with their
Hmm.
kids because they saw what I was doing with my own children with summer programs. And I had homeschooled as well. So with all of that, they really nudged me in this direction, so to speak, because I was very happy with doing research and all of that. But they said, "Hey, can you help us?" And so with that, that launched Compass College
Oh,
Advisory.
awesome, awesome. And it sounds like you have a fourth kid there too, who wants some attention as well.
Yes,
I
I
don't know if they
do.
they want to go to college as
Yes.
well.
He wish. He's actually a year old now, and so thank you for being so kind and understanding that. And something, I think we've all grown accustomed to that in the last couple of years with everything that's happened through COVID.
Yeah.
That there are going to be those kinds of distractions, that are happening inside your home, or I have to tell this one funny story, Terrell. I was actually doing a live on
Not
LinkedIn,
alive,
and
no.
there I am. Yes, I'm all professional and whatnot, and talking about moms and what have you, and parenting. And my oldest son, because he was at home, of course, from college, walks by with no shirt on, looking in the refrigerator. I'm like, I was just, I must have lost it. But I did realize that someone was watching.
Man. You know what? I embrace those moments because it makes you more relatable. It makes you human, and I think people are starting to
Yes.
appreciate that, especially moms. If you're talking to a mom's group, they can relate
Yeah.
with that. They understand, they identify with that, and they appreciate
Yes.
you so much more. It's like you were having a
Yes.
mom moment. And a lot of moms
For
can relate to
sure.
that moment, and you mothers, you handle it so gracefully, and I don't know how you do it, but you're amazing and you do it, and we still get the message and the point across. Everything doesn't have to always be pitch perfect, right? We
Yes.
just learn how to adapt.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I'm doing now.
Adaptability. Um, I resonate with your title, the education doctor, because I feel like
Hmm.
our education system just has not been healthy for a long period of time, and we need a doctor like yourself to come help us.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
what have been
Yeah.
some things that you have been do like dive into some of the important things that you see, and when you look at how you've been able to I don't know, I want to say cure is the word, but provide, good remedies to support and
Oh,
health and aid
yeah.
and nurse our education system back to wellness that really supports our black and brown community.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that we definitely saw through the last couple of years is a lot of heightened
Mm,
stress and
yeah.
anxiety, with kids being pretty much yanked out of their schools, no longer really able to see their friends on a regular basis, and all of that. And one of the things that I did, especially because I was talking with students on a regular basis through everything happening, their school being shut down, and I deepened my mindfulness
Mm,
practice so that I could share that with them.
mhm.
And so I definitely was meeting with students a lot more
Yeah.
frequently. Um, than we had been scheduled, but it was to give them that sense of
Mm-hmm.
routineness, and also to do a mindfulness practice with them to help reduce their stress and at the same time build their
Mm.
resilience through that time. And I'm actually going to be working in a school this fall as a practicum to work with groups of students on
Nice.
mindfulness and helping them have the tools that they need to deal with stress and to reduce the kind of stress that they may
Mm-hmm.
be dealing with on a regular basis. And so these are tools that they can use
Yeah.
anywhere. They're portable, they can use them at any time and be able to stay strong through whatever adversity is
Yeah,
happening.
I would say like the pandemic has definitely heightened that, not only just in the school system but in work.
Hmm.
Shoot, we have adults that need these mindfulness practices as well. Some of these
Yeah,
parents might
yeah,
need it as well. So hopefully the kids get to go back
right.
home and teach it to their parents, to help
Yeah,
create more, I guess, peace and flow within the household. And help with their
absolutely.
emotional and social development as well when we talk about youth.
Hmm.
Um, Mindfulness is definitely one of those hot topics, and I think it's something I needed when I was in school. How do you start to create, I guess, a normalcy around that? Because I don't think this is something that we, you know, uh, really embedded into, well, at least not into all the school systems. Some school systems are, embracing it. But how do you
Yeah.
get that to
Hmm.
be a normal conversation and adopt that as a normal practice into the school system?
Wow, that's a big question, because school systems are so varied in nature. But I would say that if they start with their
Hmm.
data in terms of looking at, how the levels of stress have increased in their schools and thinking about ways that they can support students with managing down
Hmm.
that stress, then mindfulness, which is, scientifically based, can be a great way for them to do something
Hmm.
about it. And so it's going to start usually with training
Hmm.
teachers. And the program that I went through for my mindfulness training does just that. They
Hmm.
train teachers and they train you to work in a school setting, delivering mindfulness practices. And so there is information, online through Mindful
Hmm.
Schools that they can access, and their teachers can get trained and they can have the opportunity to bring it into their school in a cost effective way. And I know for many schools, they'll have some type of funding set aside that can also be used for that professional development for their teachers. And that's really going to be the most effective way to grow the
Hmm.
knowledge base around it and also have practitioners inside the schools who can deliver the
Gotcha.
program.
I like that. I like that. Now, I feel like there's so many different things that you could have done. What really like drew you to mindfulness as one of those practices to really support and aid
Yeah.
our young people?
Well, I had started practicing it a number of years ago, just, with dealing with
Hmm.
stress myself. And my son had told me about an app that
Hmm.
he was using. And so that was kind of the initial
Hmm.
introduction to it. Um, being an
Hmm.
entrepreneur can
Oh
be
yes,
stressful.
please tell
So, I mean,
you know another
being an
surprise
entrepreneur can
that
be very
like
stressful.
I would have
What's
never,
that?
because you seem like such a zen person. Like your personality seems so zen when I talk to you.
Oh, I
Like
am.
I would have never imagined in a million years that having to work on mindfulness and stress would have been something you had to do. Like I thought it would just came naturally to you.
Oh, yeah. No, it does not. But that's interesting you would say that, because I do believe that that's my
Mhm.
superpower, and what attracts clients to our firm as well is that sense of calmness. And I have to share this too. The name of my proprietary framework is called Keep Calm. The CALM stands for College and Accelerated Leadership Methodology. And I do talk about parenting with grace and ease.
Right.
So it's, part of who I am in a lot of ways, but also is something that
Mm.
I've nurtured over the years. And recently, with being an entrepreneur, and just so many different things going on, even growing, sometimes can just
Mhm.
add so much more stress to your plate, or feeling like, you just can't
Yeah.
get enough done. And so when I looked into it as a practice, I started it for myself. And as I was going through it, what I, kept thinking about so much was the students that I
Mhm.
worked with, because I see that stress in them. They're anxious about whether or not they're going to get in. Parents are anxious about the cost
Mhm.
of college. And I wanted to do something more intentional in terms of working with students and incorporating it in a way that I could share it with them
Mhm.
to help them. And so I had started taking classes through
Mhm.
Mindful Schools. And then once, COVID hit, it just amplified, because I knew then that I had to do something more, with all of my students, not just a small, focus
Mhm.
group, if you will, but with all students, incorporating something that can support them with being
Mhm.
less stressed and building resilience through
I
those
love it. I love it.
years.
Um, I
Hmm.
what's the biggest myth that you often hear from parents and students when you start talking to them about mindfulness, especially in this setting with helping people transition from, going from high school and preparing for college, and some of these parents might be first time. They didn't may have not graduated from college, so there's some of their
Hmm.
students or
Yeah.
their kids might be they might be a first generation college
Yeah.
student. So I know they'll probably look at you here,
Yeah.
mindfulness, Dr. Pamela, please, you gonna pay for this $100,000?
Yeah. Well, something, I think there are a couple of myths. One of the myths is that it's something that's religious
Mm,
based. That's a really big myth around mindfulness. And then the second one is the time it takes. And it's like, I'm not sitting around like humming, humming. I mean, I'm not sitting around doing that for hours, but there are, different techniques that you can access at
mhm.
any time. So, for example, one of the practices that's very simple and really powerful is
Okay.
gratitude. And so it's asking students, at the start of the meeting, tell me three things you're grateful for from the last 24 hours.
Mm,
And when they think about that and talk about what they're grateful for, not only do I get to know them, but it calms the
mm,
meeting. It calms the meeting immediately when we start. And so that lets them know, too, that, I care, I'm listening, and I want to have a space where we can share with one another. There's
mhm.
no judgment. And what we're talking about doesn't have to be stressful in any
Mm.
way.
I can see that also, you know, changing the psychology of how somebody's entering into the space, because now I'm entering into a space of
Hmm.
gratitude. So my energy and mindset is going to be different from if I'm entering the space of
Right.
trying to tackle a difficult problem, because I'm going into gratitude, and now I'm
Right.
like, you know, what do I
Right.
have to be stressed about when I'm looking at gratitude, right? So I can see that
Exactly.
as just a simple trick that people can
Hmm.
just use. Now, how often do you like? Would you
Yeah.
say people should try to, like, if I want to implement this as a practice, how should I implement the gratitude practice? And
I would say you just do it
okay.
daily. And it could be a journal exercise that you do. Just kind of write down, a few things that you're grateful for each morning.
Mm,
What are you grateful for from the last day? And I like to use a time frame on it because then it's just not I'm grateful for my family. Okay, yeah. I mean that gets kind of old, but it's actually being grateful for some of the little
mm,
things as well. And so if you put a limit on it for 24 hours, then it's like, I hear things like my dad made the best lemon blueberry pound
mm.
cake yesterday. And it's like,
Man,
wow, I can't wait to come to your
you making
house.
me hungry right now just
So,
thinking
I
about that.
mean,
I
and
just started
students,
thinking about, oh man, pound cake, because my grandma, rest in peace, used to make an amazing 7 Up pound cake, and I started thinking about that.
mm, yeah, yeah. And so it's, that specificity to it and really thinking about some things that we just take
Mm,
for granted
so
so
true.
often. And so it's just been wonderful to get to know students in that way and to offer them to share with them something that has really helped me over
Hmm.
the years, and they find that it helps them as well. On the first few times we do it, they don't know what to say or it's hard to think
Hmm.
of something, but after that it's like, wow, some of the things they are grateful
Mm.
for really warms my heart to
Nah,
hear.
I love that.
So
I love that.
so yeah.
So for those who are
Hmm.
trying to do it, so I, within the last 24 hours, think of something you're grateful for. If you could try it in the morning, and then you also said mentioning putting a timer to it. Like what time frame would you like? 5 minutes?
Oh, oh, no, not a time like that. A 24
Oh,
hour period
gotcha.
in terms of what you're grateful for from the last 24 hours. Or if we're, meeting at the start of the week, I'll say, what are you grateful for from this
Gotcha.
weekend? Because, generally students will have generic answers like, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for the
Hmm.
weather being good. I'm thinking like, the weather is always good in Florida. Come on now. Tell me something else. So I say from the last 24 hours, what was good? Okay,
Yeah.
what are you grateful for? So that's what I mean by the
Yeah.
time
Now, do
frame.
you think
But it's something that doesn't take
do
any time
do
at all.
like do you just focus on the one thing, or could you do it as an exercise where, like, think about all the things that has happened to you in the last 24 hours and the things that you're grateful for, or is it better just to focus on just at least one thing,
Oh yeah.
and really get granular detail with that one thing?
No, you can you can do it however is
Okay.
easiest for you to do. I just want it to be accessible and for people to do it. And so, just like I said too, maybe it's a
Yeah.
journaling exercise. And so, you keep a notebook and you just write out what you're
Hmm.
grateful for. And maybe you come up with only two or three things that day. Maybe another day you have tons of
Hmm.
things you write. Maybe I would write about all the people I saw at the concert on Friday night and Saturday night. That was like
Hey.
10 artists. So it can be done however is
Yeah.
easiest for you to do. I think if it's easy to
Yeah.
do, you'll do it. And so just make it easy.
um
Yeah.
so I, I I love that practice, and I mean it's something that I do too. I like to try to start off my
Hmm.
morning with a morning of gratitude, because it helps set the tone for the morning, um, and not be in such a reactive straight state of mind. Like, are you going first thing,
Yeah.
check the emails, and then who I have to respond to, and so forth. But like, let me think about it.
Yeah, it's a long time before I check email
Yeah.
on a daily basis. It's like I'm up for hours before I check any
Okay.
email. Just, yeah, because it changes your
Uh,
whole day. And I have, like a morning ritual,
mhm.
if you will. And I was talking with someone recently, and they were talking about the difference between a routine and a ritual. And a ritual is something that you do that gives you
Mm,
energy, or is something positive that comes out of it, as opposed to a routine where it's just done
mm,
anyway. So I thought, okay. And so I have a morning tea
mhm,
ritual. And for me, it's going to Panera Bread to get
mm.
iced tea. And people say, you drink iced tea in the morning? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. And so it's iced tea for me. It's
Uh-huh.
not sweetened, but it's something about that
Uh-huh.
ritual that I have each morning that really jumpstarts my day.
Mm.
And I feel energized and ready to start the day. And if I don't do it, wow, the start of my day is
Gotcha.
off.
I like that. Would you consider yourself like an energy person
Yeah.
then? Like you have to.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. I have
Uh-huh.
high energy, and I tend to be a high energy person from
Mm.
early morning into the early evening.
And that tea helps set you off
And
to get you
so,
into that energy state of high energy
oh,
and
it
uh,
absolutely does. It absolutely does. And also, too, I know that because that is true for me, that for those things that I absolutely have to get done, I need to do them first
mm,
thing in the morning. And so, for something like exercise, even, I'm a
mhm.
runner, and if it's late afternoon, I'm not going to run. Simple as that. I already know that because so many other things would have gotten, into my day,
Yeah.
bogged me down. So if I'm going to run, I need to do it first thing in
Mhm.
the morning. And sometimes that's the case with writing as well. I'm working on a book now, and I have to do it
Mhm.
first thing in the morning because I know that once I get online, check
Mhm.
email, my day could be turned
Yeah.
upside down.
And congrats on working on the book. We're gonna get into that in just a second. Um, I want to get back to this tea thing, uh, because I like the you said this is a ritual and really distinguish between ritual and routine, helping you set the energy of your day and being the most productive version of you. Like, what is it about this tea? Is it a nostalgia thing that takes you back to a moment, place, and time that gives you this energy that allows you to like what?
Oh, I think this particular tea is just
Oh,
highly caffeinated. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything
uh,
else about it. But there are some places where the tea is,
yeah,
too strong. There's some restaurants that have very, very strong tea, and I avoid
uh,
that. But Panera Bread just has a
like,
really good iced tea.
and this is not a
That's
paid
all.
advertisement or endorsement, but Panera Bread, if you want to reach out to Dr.
It's
Pamela,
not.
she'll be happy to take the
I
sponsorship.
know I am planning to be a brand ambassador for them. So, yes, if they're
If you're
listening,
listening, sure, we'll
yes,
happily accept.
yes.
um, Tell me about this book. I didn't even know you was in the process of writing the book, but tell me tell me a little bit about it. Whatever you could share or
Yeah.
would like to share.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, my first book is What to Know
Okay.
Before They Go,
Okay.
college edition. And it's for parents and mentors, etc., to help teens as they are going through the college process. And so I'm in the process
Okay.
of revising and updating that first edition because in the last couple of years, so many things have
Mm,
changed with COVID. And one of the key things that I talk about in the book is, you know, I define, what fit is, because a lot of times, people will use the term loosely around finding the
mm-hmm,
right fit for college. And I define that term more explicitly. And in this second edition, I will add another key
mm-hmm,
factor of fit and what that means. And so those are, some of the key changes to this new audition. And then I'm writing another book that will be for
Gotcha.
teenagers in terms of what they need to do, especially if they're going through the process on their own. And that was something that I learned after I released the
Hmm.
first book, is that students were reading it. And I thought, really? Because it's not even written to them. They
Yeah.
weren't the audience for it per se. And so I'm going to write a book for
Mm.
them around, how, what they need to know to go to the colleges of their dreams. And
Yeah.
so that's what this
Yeah,
third
they
one will
probably were
be.
reading it because a lot of them, like, this new generation of students, they have a wealth of access to information, and some of them probably were first generation college students. So they knew they had to help their parents through the process. So like, let me
Yeah,
read this book to see what my parents need to know.
yeah.
So since I have to
Yeah.
parent myself through the
Well,
process,
that's the
yeah.
way I did it. Yeah, that's the way I did it when I was growing up because, my mom finished eighth grade, my dad finished 10th. And so they wouldn't have known how to
Hmm.
help me with, applying to college at all. And so it's interesting, though, that with this generation, what I'm finding is that sometimes it's
Hmm.
the kid who has found out about me. Maybe they have heard about me from a friend, or they've, like you said, they've accessed
Hmm.
something online and found me and then told
Hmm.
their parents to contact me. And I even, when it first dawned on me, was a couple of years ago, I was doing a virtual boot camp because it was at the
Hmm.
height of COVID. And so I was doing this virtual boot camp, and I talked to this mom, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, my daughter, was getting your emails." And she said, "Mommy, I have to sign up for this. I didn't even know about this." So I just signed her up. And I thought, really? Because this mom, was in my quote unquote target
Hmm.
market, my target audience. And so she was on my list, but she wasn't getting the emails. The email address was for her
Mm.
daughter, even though it had her name on it. And her daughter was the one opening the emails. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to start then asking if you're a student or parent on my form. And that way, if there's a student who wants to get information,
Yeah.
let them
Because
get
I
it.
think everything that you're offering is valuable information
So,
that could be for the students just as well as the parents. You're not only the doctor of education, you're the doctor of these relationships in their household, navigating education, right? And they're the keys and tools to success.
yeah, absolutely. And when I work, for schools, I'm definitely working more with
Hmm.
students than with parents. It's just that oftentimes, the parents will reach out to me to
Mm.
work with their teen privately. So,
Gotcha,
so
gotcha.
yeah.
No, side note, I was just thinking about the the because you have the one acronym, which is the keep calm, and fit. Is there an acronym to fit too, or is okay?
No, there isn't an acronym.
Okay,
It
all right.
is
So
what
because
it
I
is,
didn't know, because
fit.
it's just like, all right, she's clever with the wordplay. So let me double check to make sure fit doesn't have
Yes.
a acronym too. By the way, you know what?
No, it's not an
You should have
acronym.
trademarked keep calm, because everybody using your keep calm but not using it the way you intended it. Oh,
I
really?
have.
Oh,
Oh,
so
I have. Yes. Yes. And it's not, so
okay.
it's an acronym.
Because
The
I
calm
was
is
like,
an
I see keep
acronym.
calm used
Yes.
all the
So that
time,
is
but I know they're
trademarked.
not using it the way Dr. Pamela intended it.
Yes. Not like that. Mm-mm. No,
um,
not like
all
that.
right. So I want to go into your career journey because I just find the work that you do fascinating, and I wish there were uh, a ton of we could clone you and put you in one in every state. I don't know if that's possible, but
Oh, there are a lot of people out there
really?
who do this work. I'm
Oh,
definitely
okay.
not the only one. Oh, yeah, there are. There are a lot of people who do this work. And so everyone has their own,
Uh-huh.
twist to it or their own signature on it. But there are a lot of
Yeah,
people who
but
do
there's
this
only
work.
one you.
Yeah. Only
Yeah,
one me for
and
sure.
I love the way that you do the work, and I love just the way that to see somebody that looks like us doing the work and helping us and giving us the lessons in the way that we can really absorb it and understand it and dissect it. Um, I want to go to the career journey aspect because I love following the steps that you kind of took to get here. But I also like to show students, parents, whoever, whether they're listening to your story and inspired and want to go down this journey, or they're stuck in a dead end job and they're like, you know what, I've thought about doing this, and now Dr. Pamela has given me some inspiration through her story and the thing that I heard on this podcast. Um, but there's always a starting point, and I like people to show the people the journey. So I want to ask you this question before we go into the steps that you took. What was your first job?
My first job was cleaning up, a
Really? I would have
janitor.
never guessed that. Now, what would you say were some
Yes.
lessons
And
you learned from that first
hmm,
job that may have carried you to the next step of your career path?
hmm. Um, I learned about
Mm,
being honest and
okay.
having integrity. In this first job, it was a summer job, and I had lied
Hmm.
about my age so that I could be hired for the position. And during the job, I did not want to be cleaning up, first of all, because I was already lazy at home. So now I'm at a business calling myself
Uh-huh.
cleaning up. And I was basically sleeping as opposed to cleaning. I would do a little something and go in the
Oh
break
my
room and
goodness.
lay down. And I
Uh-huh.
got caught and I got fired and ended up going back, pleading for my job. And so in that conversation and everything that ensued, they, learned that, wow, maybe she can do
Mm,
something else. And so they allowed me to work in the office after that. And it was doing more
mm-hmm,
administrative work. But the biggest lesson
mm-hmm.
was being honest. And even though I haven't thought about
Yeah.
that since then, I mean, um, that's what I think was the lesson, and honest in terms of you know
Hmm.
letting them know what
Yeah.
my age was to begin with, and then also
Hmm.
having integrity if that was the job, doing it, and not
Yeah.
trying to cut corners or sleeping on the job as I was, even though it ended up working out
Hmm.
better for me. um, I would have wanted to start out
Yeah.
better from the
And I
beginning.
think those are two great qualities to have, especially when you're going into entrepreneurship and building your brand and business, especially if you want to have a quality product and really
Hmm.
build good relationships and with clients and customers. So, um, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, now, what were the
Hmm.
steps that you kind of took to launch your career in business? I know your young ones inspired you, uh, but what would you say were the key important steps that you kind of took to get to where you're at today?
Well, it was actually um,
Hmm.
working for a company. And for me, I think it was important to have
Mm,
that corporate experience so that I could really get a sense for what's possible as far
mm,
as systems, as far as understanding the financial structure, as far as being able to see
hmm.
different departments. Because as an entrepreneur starting out,
Yeah.
you are head of every department. you know, you're doing it all. And because I had corporate
Mhm.
experience beforehand, and this, my corporate experience was largely before I had children, I could see how that all came together. And it's really helped me with understanding operations, understanding systems,
Yeah.
understanding my numbers. And so I know that there's some risks that I take and probably would not have taken had I not had the
Yeah.
corporate background. And I say that because there are some days when I'm just like, whew,
Mhm.
I don't know about this, but I know what it's like to work in corporate
Yeah.
and I don't want to go back. I don't see myself there. I know that this is
Mhm.
what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I've taken risk in terms of growing, hiring people. And sometimes, I've put up investments for things and not knowing,
Mhm.
if I'm going to get the return that,
Yeah.
that I'm seeking. But I think that's part of being an entrepreneur and being willing to
Mhm.
take those risks and just knowing that you have to keep going in so many ways. And that's what I do every time because I don't see that
Mhm.
going back to get a job
Yeah.
is an
Yeah.
option
Especially
for
when
me.
you've
And especially not an option
yeah,
that
yeah.
I want.
Especially because you've come so far too, and I think you've established something that you're
Yeah.
passionate about, you love, that truly fulfills you and allows you to give back. So there
Yeah.
is no turning back. This is it.
Exactly. There is no turning back at this point. And it's just like, yes, a
Mhm.
corporation can be my client, but
Yeah, there
I'm
you
not going to
go.
be their employee. So, so
Like,
where's that
I love it.
contract?
I love it.
Where is
So,
that
um,
contract? So, yeah.
I love the journey that you've been on, and I have to ask because with all the experiences and the knowledge that you have, what's one good lesson life has taught you?
I would say it's about
Mm,
having faith and not being afraid. Um, and I don't know if I would use the word, fearless or be fearless because there's some portion of fear
mhm,
that's good to have so that you don't do anything too crazy. But to not be afraid is
mhm,
a better way to say it, and certainly a
mhm,
life lesson, and one that I want to impart to really everyone who is thinking about
mhm,
being an entrepreneur is not being afraid, because I think that's what holds us back oftentimes from getting started with being an entrepreneur. We spend too much time just working someone else's job
yeah,
and building their wealth without taking that leap of faith to say,
yeah,
I'm just going to do this.
yeah.
I'm just going to do
And,
it.
and I think I forget where this quote came from, but I'm there was a quote that I heard somebody say before that if you go to the grave, you'll see so many dreams that were deferred, lost, or just died in the grave. Like there's so many ideas. That's where you find the most ideas
Right,
in the graveyards because people
right,
never took the leap of faith, right? And I know I probably messed up the quote how it
right.
initially was, but that's the premise of it.
Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard it
What's
before.
some
Hmm.
advice you would give to somebody who would like to start a career in your industry? Going back to like whether they're, a college student or somebody who's a parent who's in that second wave of their career and they get re-inspired by your story. What's some advice you would give to those two type of individuals?
Um, I would say build on what you have and don't worry so much
Mm,
about what you don't have. That would be my advice. And just to say a little bit more to it, if you are someone who wants to go into education, do something entrepreneurial in education, for example, there are so many problems to solve. There are
mm,
so many problems to solve. And however you decide to solve it, build on what you already have. So, for example, if you have gone to college, build on that
mm,
experience of having gone, or how you applied, or the people that you met there, or
mm,
whatever you majored in. If you didn't go, perhaps you went to a trade school,
mm,
build on that, what you got out of that experience, or what skill you already have. Leverage that as opposed to worrying about creating a business on something that you need
mm.
to go and learn
I like that.
or pay to learn. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that that inspires someone, because a lot of times, people may look at what someone else has and feel like, oh, well, I need to
Mm,
do XYZ in order to do what it
mm.
is I want to do. But it's like, no, look at your own experience, what you have to offer, what your gifts and talents are, and
Yeah,
build
because
on
sometimes the thing
that.
that you want to create or build, the resources and everything you need might have been in your hands the whole time. It's just was for you just to keep nurturing that and then building out. Like I often tell
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
if you can't fully
Absolutely. That's a
find
great
what
way to put it.
it is that you're trying to build or create, maybe it's because that thing hasn't been created yet, and you're supposed to be the first person to create it. Like that book, that amazing book that you have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if it's anyone who aspires to be an entrepreneur, I say take advantage of every free opportunity out there. And there are a lot of free resources, especially coming off
Mhm.
the last couple of years and what we've been through. There are incubators around, there are grants, there are organizations that have programs. A lot of the
Mhm.
banks lately have been starting up programs for entrepreneurs. And so taking advantage of that. When I first started, which was,
Mhm.
like 15 years ago, I went to the SBDC. They're in every community, the Small Business Development Center, the SBA. I took advantage of all of the free
Mhm.
resources they had. And that was my way of quote
Yeah.
unquote bootstrapping it. Because, yeah, I had basically been fired from my job.
uh, and big shout out to the SBA SBDC. I just had
And
a
so,
meeting with them not too long ago about um doing some partnerships together. They are a big help. They're nationwide. If go to any local, you can just go online. They have
yes.
everything from consultants to coaches to funding,
Yeah,
you name it. They have it. So major
right.
resource that I think
That's right.
is
That's
doesn't get
right.
utilized enough. So thanks for shouting that out. Um, what do you think the future has in store for your industry specifically when you look at some of the things you've been able to create and do? Um, yeah, what does that look like?
Well, I would say in the education industry, there's going to be a lot
Mm,
more personalization as far as learning is concerned, and a lot more attention to
mm,
mental wellness.
I can see that.
Yeah, because that's certainly, you know, definitely isn't an issue that's been raised through all that we've been through in the last couple of years,
Mm,
and a heightened awareness. And my hope is
yeah,
that less of a stigma
yeah,
to get help when it's needed. And so that's something that definitely carries over into the education field when you're dealing with, you know, people, you know, infants all the way into adulthood, and it's very important that we don't look at everyone as having to
Mm,
learn a certain way, because we've seen that learning can take place in a lot of other places as well through the last couple of years. And so I see that there will be
hmm.
more personalization of learning and also
Yeah,
attention to
and I
mental
think
wellness.
it's the education has not evolved as much as other technologies and everything over the past decade or so, and so I'm happy to see that personalization and more new innovative ways for us to learn.
Well, the last
Yeah,
couple of
last couple of years
years
accelerated.
accelerated it. And I would say, if you had made that statement, 2 years ago, it would have been true. And it's still true today. But whatever
Hmm.
progress has been made and changes, it was
Yes.
accelerated in the last couple of years
Hmm.
because they had to. They
Yeah,
had
and
to.
look what we can do when we have to do something, and even to the point of mental health. I think
Right.
there's a new height and focus on that because these past 2 years has been the highest mental health crisis that we've had nationwide, not just for students but for adults as well. Um, and so now that we have to do
Absolutely.
something, we are looking at our options and trying to really figure out how can we get creative and innovative around the solutions and services to help the masses of in our populations that are most affected and vulnerable. So um, I'm looking forward to it, and then I celebrate all the new achievements like folks like yourself are making and strides in our education system. So thank you for the work that you're putting in. Speaking of the work that you're putting in, let's talk about that, and let's end off on that note because I know we can talk about all the different things for hours on end, but I try to keep this at a drive time. So, um, what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. So the biggest project is an online system, if you will, an on demand system for
Mm.
high school seniors to get through everything they need to do in their applications
What?
virtually. And so we are just in the process of putting that together. My son and I are working on it, and it's going to launch in the next week. And it's you know, all modules, videos recorded, interactive, uh, downloads that they can have to get through the application, writing their essays on their schedule
Okay,
and
Dr.
getting it
Pamela, I
done.
see you.
Getting it done.
All
Because,
right.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have so many families that come pretty much, let's say, at the last minute.
we work better under
They
pressure,
come
Dr.
at the
Pamela. We
last
you know
minute,
that's what we
and
say.
yes, that's what they say. That's what they say, but they've really been procrastinating. And this is something that can help them to, help their student get through the process, know what they need to know, and get it done. And it's, coaching them through, how do you write an essay and what things to say and how to get it all done. And it's
I
going to
love it. I
be
love it.
available on demand.
Well, I can't wait for people to check that out.
Mhm.
If you are listening to this and you haven't checked out the book too, get the first book while the second edition is being revamped and revised for your consumption. I'm going to get all those links. So if you're driving and
Yes.
you heard all this amazing information and you're like, well, how do I get
Hmm.
to it? Don't worry. I'm going to get all the links and every way that Dr. Pamela
Yes.
can provide me so you can get a hold of her, get a hold of some of the different resources and tools that she
Hmm.
has out there. Dr. Pamela, thank you so much for
Yeah.
just stopping by and sharing your story, your
Thank you.
and all this amazing information with us. Any last words of wisdom for the people before you
Hmm.
head off into the night?
Um, for those who are parents, I say stay encouraged with their teens. Stay encouraged. They're going to be amazing in all that they do. And if college is in their future, it can be affordable and they can find that place where they can thrive. And for those students who may be listening who are in high school and thinking about what they want to do afterwards, they have so many options ahead, whether it's going to college or whether it's starting
Mm.
their own business. That is possible as well to do after high school. And I just encourage them to stay the course and follow
Mm.
their passions. Don't worry about what everyone else is telling them they have to do, but follow their heart, and
I
they will
love it.
win
Love
every
it. Love it.
time.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for those words of wisdom.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping
You're
that
welcome.
this episode will help
You're
everybody stay
welcome.
encouraged. And we will probably be airing this sometime next month so everybody can be encouraged and get. I don't know if that's when the application system starts again, but
Yes.
hopefully it's just in time for
It
when the
will.
applications
It
start
will. It
August 1st.
opens
So
on
we're gonna be
August
just in
1st.
time. So thank you again.
Yes,
Look forward to
that's
hopefully
right.
getting you back on here again once that you have that program
Yes,
started, so we could walk people
would
through,
love
maybe do a
to.
learning session. I don't know what that
Yeah,
looks like, but thank you again, and we will catch you next time. Rise, Urban
you're
Nation.
welcome.